Hi, everybody. It's Marlene with Eerie News. How's everybody doing today? Good, I hope. And today is May 16th, 2022, Monday, May 16, 2022. So let's get off to the first story out is SF Gate. Interesting, a little bit ridiculous, but why not? And it's titled Hawaii is Waging War on Aggressive Feral Chickens. The chickens are winning. And I have a special interest in this. I have a very large flock of free range chickens on my property, so I kind of get that part about the chickens are winning. But anyway, Hawaii's ongoing battle with thousands of feral chickens continues, and written testimonies and reports from local news outlets suggest it's not going very well. The Associated Press reported that in the past 2 months, the city and county of Honolulu set traps in 5 areas and have caught just 67 chickens, costing $7,000. That amounts to $104 per bird. The Associated Press says that catching chickens is costly because the traps are being vandalized and stolen, though it's unclear who's damaging them and why. Now, city officials are trying to address the public's desperate pleas for help while figuring out a cost-effective solution. The problem is so dire that a bill introduced in the Hawaii state legislature sought to establish a state-funded program to address the feral chickens. Unfortunately for Oahu's chicken-plagued residents, however, Senate Bill 2195 failed to advance. According to written testimonies from Hawaii individuals responding to the proposed legislation recorded in early March, the aggressive chickens have overtaken the community. Residents say they're damaging and defecating on properties, obstructing roads, and roosting in mango trees while making loud cackling noises from dawn to dusk. Oh boy, do I get that. Many of us work long hours, even double shifts, and not to be able to sleep and due to the cacking and crowing of the feral roosters and chickens has really been an unfair burden and hardship, wrote Hawaii resident Majid Jonaidi. From dawn to setting sun, there is a constant crowing daily, and I work from home, so it is hard and sometimes embarrassing if I have to make a call to the mainland, and it sounds like I'm in a barnyard, testified Desiree Garner, who supports the program. It has never been like this before, and I am not sure how they got to this area, if for food and then became pets or if they naturally traversed. Alexander Essen wrote that there are more than 100 feral chickens and roosters roaming the streets on Kanuku Street and Lokowai Place. Essen has to dodge them all over the roadway, while residents like Murdoch Ortiz have watched them create havoc by jumping on garbage bins and ripping up trash bags, scattering trash and debris everywhere. But the chickens aren't just loud and messy, they're destructive. Sharon Payne wrote that they dig up yards, easements, shoulders, areas, and gardens, even foraging under walls and sidewalks, seriously damaging local infrastructure. This is insane and needs to be corrected, she emphasized. Community members also say that the feral fowl are now becoming a statewide problem. They've been here for many years, but the issue had really gotten bad lately, wrote Michelle Harmon. Their populations are skyrocketing and they are quickly expanding their territory. Hawaii News now reported that city council members are currently exploring cheaper, more effective ways to eradicate the birds. I think there needs to be more time really spent to find appropriate locations and to see how effective funds being spent are. Kimberly Hashiro, Director of Department of Customer Service, told the outlet, "We're actually obtaining quotes now from other vendors to see what they might be able to do." Hawaii News now said that an additional $50,000 in proposed funding for Oahu's feral chicken eradication program was approved consideration and will be reviewed by the council on June 1st. The Hawaii State Senate Communication Office did not respond to SF Gate's request for comment at the time the article was written. I get it. I have about 40 chickens. Yes, that's how many I have. I have a big piece of land and they forage. Some of my chickens, depending on breed, stay close to the coop. Others go off and forage and things like that. But I know I can't leave out. They're so smart. I can't leave out a big bags of dog food because they know there's food in there. They'll peck through it. And yeah, yeah. Well, you know what they could start with? Get rid of their roosters. Start off with the roosters first. Chickens will lay eggs, but if they're not getting fertilized by roosters, guess what? No chickens. No chickens will be hatching. They can start with that. Or, yeah, I don't know. That's I have to laugh, but now the only part I don't understand is most chickens and birds for that matter dawn or when the sun's coming up in dusk is when they're like really the loudest. The middle of the day. But for example, right now, my chickens, it's dark. Once the sun starts going down, they start squawking, but everybody runs to roost. In other words, get off the floor because they know, they instinctually know this is the place I could get like eaten. But that's it. Once it's nighttime, everybody quiets down. You might hear an exclamation, "Quack," but that's it. So, but yeah, I can see for somebody that I have to laugh at that person I'm on a call and it sounds like I'm in a barnyard. Yes, and I'm sure there will be times when I will be reading something from the news stories and it'll be the daytime and you'll hear that type of cacophony going on. All right, let's go on to the next story out of Eerie News. This is an article that appeared in Eerie News titled, Have aliens ever visited Earth? Perhaps not. Scientists explain. Has there ever been definite, incontrovertible proof that an alien race has visited Earth? The answer is no. And researchers have a disturbing but plausible explanation why they haven't. No doubt a civilization that could reach our planet would be advanced, but this very trait could have doomed them due to stagnation or their collective death before they reached us. The hypothesis suggests that a civilization with the technological advancement necessary to reach our solar system would reach an extinction event crisis when the demand for energy outstripped its technological innovations. The choice would be simple: either end growth, which would include interstellar exploration in order to maintain equilibrium, or death. The Fermi Paradox, posed by Nobel Prize winning physicist Enrico Fermi, compares the immense age and size of the universe, which should have produced multiple life forms that would have visited us by now, or at least provided undeniable proof of their existence. However, the reality is all the opposite, which points to a different version of alien visitation to Earth. Fermi is said to have come up with the idea of the Fermi Paradox in a throwaway remark over lunch with colleagues in 1950 when he asked, "Where is everybody?" as in everybody being the extraterrestrials. This paradox was described by the late British science fiction author Sir Arthur C. Clarke, who said, "Two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the universe or we are not. Both are equally terrifying." A new study arguing this point was published in the journal Royal Society Open Science. Michael Wong with the Carnegie Institution for Science and Stuart Bartlett of the California Institute of Technology wrote, "Civilizations either collapse from burnout or redirect themselves to prioritizing homeostasis, a state where cosmic expansion is no longer a goal, making them difficult to detect remotely. Either outcome, homeostatic awakening or civilization collapse, would be consistent with the observed absence of galactic-wide civilizations. We hypothesize that once a planetary civilization transitions into a state that can be described as one virtually connected global city, it will face an asymptotic burnout, an ultimate crisis where the singularity interval timescale becomes smaller than the timescale of innovation. This presents the possibility that a good many of humanity's initial detection of extraterrestrial life may be of the intelligent, though not yet wise kind." These scientists composed their hypothesis based on studies of the superlinear growth of cities. The study describes where cities increase in size and thereby more energy consumption at an exponential rate in order to accommodate their growing population. This brings them to the crisis point where there is a crash, followed by a precipitous civilization-ending collapse if changes are not made. If these alien races had any hope of surviving, they would redirect their efforts away from unbounded growth to where they would be in harmony with its existing world or worlds until the point where it ran into trouble. The researchers suggest that even though these space explorers would not abandon all efforts to visit other worlds, chances are they would not reach our planet. Their proposal also takes into consideration the challenge of interstellar travel, that aliens have kept their presence a secret, or that ET arrived too early in the life of the universe for direct contact with humans. Another hypothesis published in the Astrophysics Journal posits that the sheer size of the universe could take as long as 400,000 years for a signal to be received between advanced civilizations, and we haven't been around that long in order to receive the message. Bad timing. Oh, you know what? Considering everything that, yeah, that they're here and they have been here, ancient aliens and all that, we shouldn't throw that theory, that hypothesis out either, because it's got some merit, and then you think, okay, so what's everybody talking about, all the lights in the sky. All right, let's go on to the next one. This is out of Psychology Today, and it's authored by a very well-known author named Catherine Ramsland, Dr. Catherine Ramsland, and it's titled "What Drives a Desire for Murderabilia? The Perceived Value of an Aura Fuels the Market for Items Linked to Killers." Recently, she's writing this in the first person. Recently, I discovered that a page from a letter of mine to BTK killer Dennis Rader was for sale for $200. It outlined ideas for the work we were doing on his story, Confession of a Serial Killer, and Rader's initials on it had raised its value. That is, he'd handled it, so someone would willingly pay to own it. The same aura attaches to other items associated with serial killers and mass murderers, with some commanding surprisingly high prices. From museums to websites to large-scale expos, seekers can find nearly anything they want, but why? What drives them? Andrew Dodge, a collector and host of the Unforbidden Truth podcast, says, "I collect murderabilia to preserve dark parts of history, from letters to artwork to prison IDs, which have accumulated over the years from various offenders, as well as purchasing items from my collection. Although murderabilia is a taboo subject, it does provide insight to the psyche and world of the criminal." It was victim advocate Andy Kahan who coined the term murderabilia, meant to be derogatory. It became the accepted label for this morbid commerce. English professor David Schmidt views the combination of celebrity and death as its force arising from a mixed message in American culture. Our socially approved narrative about killers, they're bad, is contradicted by a disavowed narrative, they're fascinating. Thus, killers become glamorized, especially in covert venues. The more exposure a given figure achieved via an audience-grabbing story, the greater their celebrity allure. True crime expert Harold Schechter states that collecting items that killers have touched or owned has roots in superstition. It's a lucky charm. It protects from those who dipped handkerchiefs into the bloody wounds of gangster John Dillinger to those who've purchased Ted Bundy's car or Ed Gein's gravestone. There will always be people who want to get close to items associated with violence and death. The murderabilia market echoes the can't-turn-away attraction of battlefields, extreme sports, horror films, and even dangerous weather events. Throw in a bit of fame and the contagion effect of touching an item a killer has touched, and you begin to understand the hook. Crime scenes and murder trials have drawn gawkers since the 1800s, and the Internet's reach has considerably enhanced visibility and access. It's also provided a community of like-minded collectors. Taboo as the practice might be, there's plenty of support. Preserving a piece of criminal history is one motivator, but for some collectors, these objects also contain a covert vitality. People who receive a letter or drawing from Dennis Rader, for example, tell me how exciting, even scary it is. Just opening the envelope filled them with awe. It stood out from every other piece of mail they'd received. It was from a serial killer. Such people have spurned a social frame of lawful behavior to unleash their rage, lust, desperation, or some other murder-inspiring emotion. They get as close to the divide between life and death as anyone can. Fascination with murder-related items expresses an attraction to energy that defies restrictive boundaries, so there's a marketplace to obtain them. And it began with criminologists who hoped to educate. Positive theories during the late 19th century inspired the first criminological museums as teaching institutions. When Austrian criminologist Hans Gross attested to how quickly knowledge about crime became obsolete, museum developers decided to establish a visual history. In these museums, visitors could find skulls, death masks, execution instruments, weapons, poisons, crime tools, handwriting samples, criminal disguises, and even human remains. The public demanded more, so vendors devised products. Once the market was established, its content was impossible to control. The buyers determined the value as well as the permissible level of gore and depravity. Vendors obliged. Psychologist Michael Apter suggests that once something is labeled dangerous, it exerts a magical attraction due to its heightened emotion. To reduce anxiety over approaching it, we develop protective frames, i.e., narratives that provide buffers. The monster threatens us, but we can kill or cage him. Thus, we can safely experience the thrill of fear over what he's done. Considering the perceived transfer of a killer's essence through murder items, this buffering concept applies. The meaning conveyed onto the object creates the frame which maintains the sense of threat, yet the killer's not really there. Psychologically, a collector can experience the killer's aura from a safe distance. Sometimes the excitement peters out. I've talked with collectors who think the acquisition of murder items brought them bad luck, or they've grown too disturbed by it to keep it. They're likely to find buyers. Since at least the 1980s, the demand for murderabilia has only grown. Today, one can find numerous online auctions and sales sites. You might find a handwritten note from Ted Bundy, dirt from the body dump site of any number of killers, items used in a murder, signed handprints, and multiple artworks, including self-portraits. Reportedly, John Wayne Gacy had earned over $100,000 from his paintings. Most of the demands were self-portraits dressed as a clown, adding one more disturbing layer. Okay. And you know what? I think it's disturbing because I know there's people out there that they're always looking to make a buck, and their interest in murderabilia is they're going to flip it. In other words, they recognize the market that she's talking about, but they have no interest whatsoever about, getting this, but they're getting rid of it. My problem is I do, like wanting, I don't see, that's just me, the appeal of having anything having to do with somebody that murders human beings. And in this fashion, that's either, serial murderer or serial killer, whatever. I just don't get the appeal. And I honestly think that that there is what she calls an aura does attach itself to it. It was especially was something that they used a lot. And as she notes at the very end, she says the excitement peters out. The acquisition of murder items brings them bad luck, or they've grown too disturbed by it to keep it. I think that happens to more people. Like those people that collect dolls and all of a sudden you think the doll's looking at you kind of thing. Okay, let's go on to the next one. This is out of The Guardian, and it's titled Stolen Nostradamus Manuscript is Returned to Library in Rome. Okay, let's see. An ancient manuscript by the French astrologer Michel de Nostradamus, better known as Nostradamus, stolen from a library in Rome, has been returned to the Italian capital. The manuscript, entitled Nostradamus M. Prophecies and dating back about 500 years, was rediscovered last year when it was put up for sale by a German auction house. It is unclear exactly when the 500-page manuscript was stolen from the Historical Studies Center of the Barnabite Fathers of Rome, but it is believed to have been in about 2007. The book passed through flea markets in Paris and the German city of Karlsruhe before an art dealer tried to sell it through an auction house in Pforzheim, Baden-Württemberg, at a starting price of £12,000. In April last year, investigators from Italy's Cultural Heritage Protection Squad came across the book on the auction house's website and identified it as originating from the library in Rome via a stamp dated 1991 on one of the pages. Rome's public prosecutor contacted his counterpart in Pforzheim, who began an investigation. German experts established the book was an original work of Nostradamus, who was famous for his cryptic prediction of world events and was the one trafficked from Rome. The manuscript was returned to the library on Wednesday. Italy's Cultural Heritage Protection Team was established in 1969 and has retrieved more than 3 million stolen artifacts. In December 2021, the U.S. returned about 200 antiquities, including an ancient Roman sculpture that almost ended up in the possession of Kim Kardashian West that had been stolen and smuggled out of Italy. The text and picture captions were amended. The text and picture caption were amended on May 10, 2022. An earlier version said the manuscript dated back 300 years. We should have said nearly 500. Well, there you go. I'm going to tell you something. This is because, but there's a bunch of these artifacts, I bet you, that are in private collectors' collections. And I think the only way that they get, that have been stolen or stuff like that, and the only way that ever works is if the transactions are like off market, like, hey, I got this, you want it? Yeah, okay, and here it is, and nobody ever is the wiser. It's like, but then that takes, I don't know, it's like you got this priceless or whatever it is, beautiful thing, and just having it, I guess. Life is better than murderabilia. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next story. First, I'm going to read a short article that appears on, I wrote, this is on Stranger Than Fiction Stories, and Came out in 2018. You'll see in a minute. There's a little bit of a backstory to what actually is the end of what was not included in the original article. And it's titled The Curse of FENN'S Treasure. During the spring of 2017, a 53-year-old man fell to his death in Yellowstone National Park. Tragic but not unheard of. What is unusual is that his is the fourth death in 2 years connected to the hunt for treasure, reportedly hidden in the Rocky Mountain region by author and antiquities dealer Forrest Fenn in 2010. Jeff Murphy, 53 of Batavia, Illinois, is the fourth man in the past 2 years to die while reportedly looking for an antique chest containing gold, coins, jewelry, and other rare artifacts that Fenn says he hid somewhere in the Rocky Mountain region in 2010. Murphy was found June 9, 2017, a day after he was reported missing. His widow confirmed to the Journal a report by a Billings, Montana television station that Murphy died while in search of the treasure, estimated to be worth $2 million or more. Fenn has rejected calls to end the treasure hunt after prior fatalities among people looking for the hidden loot. State Police Chief Pete Casetas is among those who have called for Fenn to stop the hunt because of the fatalities. As with deer hunters and fishermen, there's an inherent risk that comes with hiking the canyons and mountain trails, Fenn has said. The treasure is not hidden in a dangerous spot, and I have said that no one should search in a place where an 80-year-old man could not hide it. Strangely, the details surrounding Murphy's death were kept under wraps by park officials and only came to light after a report on the incident was released via a FOIA request by Montana TV station KTMF. The report concludes that Murphy died as a result of an accident while he was on the Rescue Creek Trail near Turkey Pen Peak. It appeared he stepped or hopped onto the chute from the less steep slope above, the incident report says, according to the TV station. Jeff Murphy's widow said he bought Fenn's The Thrill of the Chase memoir, which contains a poem that Fenn says contained clue about the treasure's whereabouts, in a Santa Fe bookstore where they were on vacation about 5 years ago. The poem advises, quote, begin it, the hunt, where warm waters halt, which some Fenn enthusiasts interpret to be Madison Junction, within the boundaries of Yellowstone and south of Mammoth Hot Springs, where the Firehole and Gibbon rivers come together to form the Madison River. Last June, the body of Paris Wallace, a 52-year-old pastor from Grand Junction, Colorado, was found several miles downstream from where his car was parked at the Taos Junction Bridge over the Rio Grande near Pilar. About a month later, 31-year-old Eric Ashby died after his raft capsized while traveling through the Royal Gorge on the Arkansas River. A friend said Ashby had moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado, specifically to search for the treasure, and his sister has confirmed that he was intrigued by the search, but Fenn denied assertions that he had been in contact with Ashby. In 2016, 54-year-old Randy Beaulieu of Broomfield, Colorado, went missing while searching for the treasure on the Rio Grande near Santa Fe. His body was found months later 9 miles downstream near Cochiti Lake. Fenn chartered a helicopter to help with the search after Beaulieu disappeared. Okay, fast forward to now, and this follow-up article appears in Outside, and it's titled, Revealed, Forrest Fenn's Treasure was hidden in this national park. An affidavit filed as part of an ongoing lawsuit confirms that the treasure was buried inside an iconic American landmark, and now officials are scrambling to keep the exact location secret. Okay. In the summer of 2020, the decade-long Forrest Fenn treasure hunt ended in a tangled mess of conspiracy theories, wild accusations, and protracted legal proceedings. Fenn wouldn't say who found the treasure. Worse than that, he wouldn't say where it had been hidden. For a treasure hunt that was supposed to be a real-life Indiana Jones, the finale left everyone jonesing for more information. Cue the frivolous lawsuits. One accused Fenn of ending the hunt on purpose and lying when he announced the treasure was found in Wyoming. A different one accused the chest then anonymous finder of hacking a plaintiff's emails and texts to steal the solution. A third implied that Fenn was lying when he said he never told anyone where the treasure was because pop star Taylor Swift referenced that she knew the location of the treasure in her lyrics and music videos. I wish I were making that up. But now the most recent Fenn lawsuit has shown that Fenn did actually tell someone exactly where the treasure was very soon after it was found. He told Yellowstone National Park's Chief Ranger Sarah Davis. The Fenn treasure hunt began in 2010 when the wealthy art dealer hid a chest filled with gold and jewels from his personal collection somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, then published a 24-line poem containing clues to its locations. Jack Stewart, a 32-year-old medical student at the time, found the treasure in 2020. He revealed his identity to Outside in December of that year, just before being added as a defendant to one of the lawsuits. My texts and emails were hacked, which forced his hand. 5 searchers died in the course of the hunt. Fenn collapsed and died at home in Santa Fe in September of 2020. Over the past 2 years, all but one of the lawsuits has been dismissed, which brings us to Jamie McCracken, the Florida man now hunting for treasure in a New Mexico courtroom. McCracken accuses Fenn of moving the treasure 4 times. Whenever McCracken was getting close to it, he says. He also claims that Fenn purchased property near his search spot to keep tabs on him, and that Fenn was lying every time he said that the chest was still in the same place he'd originally left it. McCracken, who was representing himself in court, indicated he would show evidence that Fenn was still alive after his death was announced. He says Fenn misled the entire community on the hunt. Carl Summer, the lawyer for Fenn's estate, put it differently. I mean, this is bizarre shit, he said. Whatever it is, McCracken is pretty good at submitting legal paperwork. He declined to comment until his case is resolved and is set to begin proceedings in June. In preparation, Summer subpoenaed Stoof for a deposition. He needs Stoof to say that he solved the clues in the poem fair and square, and that the treasure was exactly where Fenn originally left it. If Summer questions Stoof, however, McCracken also gets a turn. Stoof would be under oath and would be compelled to reveal the exact location of the treasure. And it turns out officials at Yellowstone really want to avoid that scenario. In April, Assistant U.S. Attorney Kimberly Bell filed a motion to intervene in McCracken's case, arguing that publicizing the exact locations of Fenn's treasure would result in a large surge of visitors and damage to the park. In support of that motion, the park's chief ranger, Davis, signed an affidavit stating that in August 2020, 2 months after the treasure was found, she had a Zoom meeting with Fenn and Stoof, during which they told her where the treasure had been stashed. Davis surveyed the area the following week and concluded the spot was not set up to handle the increased foot traffic that revealing the location might bring. The affidavit doesn't specifically state that the treasure was in the park, just that the location is owned by the U.S. government and managed by the Department of the Interior. But come on. For years, searchers have theorized that the treasure was found in Yellowstone, which is why Stoof wouldn't share any specifics. Found property in a national park is supposed to be turned in to the park supervisor. In a sense, by putting the chest in Yellowstone, Fenn booby-trapped his hiding spot. Whoever found the treasure would have to maneuver very carefully if they wanted to keep it. But Stoof passed the test, and now we know how. The McCracken lawsuit made public photos of the chest in situ, still embedded in the ground, as well as some private emails between Stoof and Fenn that occurred immediately after the treasure was found. And Stoof's first email reads like it was written by a committee of lawyers. I'm aware that over the years, quote, I'm aware that over the years you have intimated that you may like to give these items to the person who found it, Stoof wrote. If that is the case with me, I would be happy to receive them, but I think it would be prudent that I first return your treasure to you so you can fully verify that it belongs to you. At that time, you can make your decision on whether to keep it all, give it to me, subtract or add items, or whatever else you may decide. Stoof emailed Fenn on June 5th, apparently leaving the chest in place overnight. He says he retrieved it June 6th, which raises some question. Did Stoof figure out all that precise language on his own that day? Were there instructions in the chest about how to proceed? The latter seems more likely. Fenn said he spent $5,000 on a lawyer figuring out the potential finder's legal situation before he placed the chest, and he always said that there was a kind of fail-safe inside, that he'd know when it was found. But then, it also seems like Stoof knew he was going to find the treasure long before he did. Maybe he had time to prepare. According to a document that recently turned up on a treasure hunting forum, Stoof applied for tax status and apparently moved to Puerto Rico, where there is almost no capital gains tax, in September of 2019, 9 months before he found the treasure. I put all this to tax attorney Larry Brandt, who I consulted with back when the treasure was first found. It looks like someone is really thinking this through, he said. On May 4th, Judge Francis J. Matthew denied the government's motion to intervene in the case, saying that doing so would cause undue delay and that the government has other avenues, like an injunction in federal court if it wants to keep the location of the treasure a secret. His view seemed to be that the location of the treasure became public information when Fenn published his poem. Oh, interesting. So for now, the deposition will proceed, and Fenn's hiding spot could soon be revealed. The end of the treasure hunt may finally be drawing to a close. When I interviewed him in 2014, Fenn said he wanted to make the contents of his treasure chest look like a pirate movie, so he filled it with the most visually stunning items he could find: diamonds, rubies, and gold. There are hundreds and hundreds of gold nuggets, he said. 2 of them are larger than a hen's egg. Gold nuggets, yellow stones. It was right there this whole time. Yeah. You know what? Maybe this guy Stoof, he found it before he actually contacted this guy. And then when he went and got legalese to make sure he didn't get, elbowed out of the way, and there you go. Interesting, huh? All right, guys. We are at the end, and I will be back soon with other interesting news like this one of the feral chickens in Hawaii overrunning the island. So until then, take care.